Hello guys, Javi here again. Today we're going to talk about clear separation of concerns. So, most codebases do not become hard to maintain because they're big. They become hard to maintain because responsibilities overlap. So, and once things overlap, every change becomes risky. Okay? So, what clear separation of concerns means? Clear separation of concerns means each part of the system has a well-defined responsibility. I repeat that. Each part of the system has a well-defined responsibility and it does not overlap with others. So when you look at any piece of code, you can answer, what is this responsible for? Okay? And what could happen if these responsibilities overlap? You can have hidden coupling, duplicated logic, unclear boundaries, and changes that cascade across the system. Perhaps if something is not well separated with its own responsibility, one little change can cascade through all the application. That's why separation is not just clean code. It's a survival strategy for systems that needs to evolve. If you need new features, update features, and change things, what you need is try to get all the part of the systems with a well-defined responsibility, okay, that do not overlap with each other. These layers and their responsibilities um, has different concerns. For example, in other videos, we talked about layers like API, application, domain, infrastructure, how they reference each other, how, for example, DDD as the domain, the core of the system, the clean architecture that defines the references and the relationship between the layers of the microservice to not create also a, circular reference and so on. We have, for example, that the API handles only handles transport only. That means it's the responsible of the request, of the HTTP, of the middleware, of the contracts, of the versioning, of the authentication, of the authorization, and so on. The API is not responsible for business rules, as we said in other videos. That's the rule case of the application layer. The application layer orchestrates the use of cases, okay? And the operational flow. You would and you must not define the business logic in an endpoint. Why would you call the entity framework from the endpoint and decide if this entity do not exist and this is not happening, then do that in an endpoint? It has no change. The API has the meaningful responsibility to handle all the initial. There it also resides, for example, the core file of the system, that is the program.s. And there you have the middleware that handles the context, how you handle the errors, all the pipelines, and so on, the requests, the responses, the contracts, the validations, and other attributes. Sorry, my cat is trying to come here to jump. Well, going um, I forgot the application. It coordinates what's going to happen, what needs to be done, what's going to happen, but it doesn't implement the technical details for that, like the persistence, like the traceability, like the observability, like the cache, like the external providers. No, that's the infrastructure side of our microservice. On the other hand, the domain contains, as we said in DDD, the business rules. Okay, the naming, the labeling, all the core entities that is related with what the business is expecting, okay, and its invariants. That's where the core business meaning lives. And for infrastructure, as I said before, the infrastructure handles all the technical details for the communication with the databases, for the communication with third parties, external providers, telemetry, observability, and so on. The database, the HTTP integrations, the cache. I mean, what I'm trying to say is it's not like the domain that it's the main core and we try to build it the most pure possible. The infrastructure can be replaceable. Um, the business rules are not. That's why, for example, we also use the microservices to isolate business rules within features inside to operate with that use case of the business, and so on. Because if not, we have a monolith, we have a distributed monolith that all intersect each other, and that's it. But implementing DDD with clean architecture and these practices with well separated concerns, we keep responsibilities clear, okay? What's the payoff of this? When first we avoid coupling. Second, the code becomes easier to understand and maintain. Third, the impact of changes is reduced. So when something changes in infrastructure, it doesn't link into domain. For example, if we are making payments, if we are making, if we are receiving data from coupons, from retails, from other vendors, if the provider changes and the model data could change a little, we do not have to change the model of the domain because that's the core. Then when we retrieve that, we change that in the infrastructure layer, or else we derivate it to the application that is the orchestrator and that manages the flows of the business logic. So, summarizing, systems fails when responsibilities overlap. Okay, we cannot merge things. API is transport only. Domain holds all the rules and invariants. Infrastructure is replaceable, and separation reduce change impact. So I hope you liked this video. Thumbs up and subscribe and have a good day. Bye.